by the military on Tuesday. The armed personnel stormed the area over the death of a 21-year-old soldier, rounding up more than 180 people in the process. The incident has drawn widespread condemnation, with MP for the area, Ernest Nogbe, demanding compensation for the victims. Well, at a news conference this morning, convener of the Ashaiman Lives Matter, a group, Emmanuel Kumade, also called for the release of all arrested persons.
We are saying loud and clear that we have suffered enough, and enough is enough. If citizens cannot sleep peacefully in their home, where else should they find peace in a democratic country like Ghana? We are therefore, as a matter of urgency, one, calling on the president to order the immediate release of all residents of Ashama that the soldiers are illegally keeping in their custody. Two, calling on the president to immediately set up a committee to investigate the criminal acts of the soldiers and the culprits punished. Three, calling on the president to direct the Minister of Defense to pay all the damaged properties of the Ashama residents caused by the soldiers. Four, pay adequate compensation to all victims of the military brutalization. Five, provide street lights in all communities in Ashama, since darkness was a contributing factor for the murder of their soldier, because the incident happened in a dark place. Residents of Ashama are also citizens of Ghana.
So that's the convener of Ashaiman Lives Matter, Emmanuel Kumade, speaking at that news conference where the Member of Parliament was present as well. We'll be getting a lot more on this for you, but in a related development or closely linked to this has to do with the soldier who was slain at Ashaiman last weekend, which resulted in all of the brutalities that we've been seeing. And so those are sounds of the military accompanying the remains of the slain soldier to the family for burial. My colleague Godwin Asidiba, he is there for us, and we'll just touch base with Godwin Asidiba shortly as to exactly what's happening there at Chado here in the capital, Accra. And shortly, we'll connect with my colleague Godwin Asidiba, who is there for us for some more on this. But in a related development, the Defence and Interior Committee of Parliament is considering a probe into the matter, and Vice Chair Ophelia Mensah Hayford has been speaking to my colleague Evelyn Tingma.
The MP for that area will make a statement on the floor. And when that statement is made, the Speaker has the right to refer, and definitely he will refer it to us. That is where we also move into the committee on a fact-finding mission to ascertain what really happened, and then to also gather some facts, come and then support the police or the military, whoever will take it up. But I know the police will come up with their investigations and all.
That's the Vice Chair of the Defence and Interior Committee of Parliament, Ophelia Mensah Hayford, speaking there. I mentioned that my colleague Godwin Asidiba is at Chado, where the burial is currently underway. Let's just pick a brief excerpt from there.
And later lost his life. We were told by the members of the family yesterday at the 37 Military Hospital that the police team was conducting an autopsy on the deceased body. A member of the family, who happens to be an uncle, Mr. Rahman, indicated that he personally saw cats on the deceased body, and currently investigations are underway, but the body is being taken now to a grave that has been dug at the Bema Camp Military Cemetery, where a group of Muslims will be having a prayer ceremony before they finally lay the deceased body to rest.
And my colleague Godwin Asidiba are there providing details from the burial of the slain soldier. We'll be bringing you a lot more on this if you stay with us, but in a closely related development, a leading member of the NPP, Dr. Mawuena Egbeta, says he is convinced the deployment of the military to Ashaiman was in consultation with the Commander-in-Chief of the Ghana Armed Forces and President of the Republic, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. He likened the military deployment and operation in Ashaiman to the execution of a coup d'etat.
There is no way the high command can move troops at that level with such a firepower anywhere in the country without the knowledge of the Commander-in-Chief. The Commander-in-Chief must be informed, because if the troops you are moving are very, very, very potent. And if they choose to do anything otherwise, then there is a big problem. So I am convinced that they had the permission or the command from the Commander-in-Chief of the Ghana Armed Forces. Now, if that is so, then that is very unfortunate. Yes, a military man has lost his life. I was once a soldier just like him, but we are nursing a young democracy, and we have to be careful how we move. And what also might surprise me is if that had been done with the consent of the Commander-in-Chief, then I ask myself, what sort of advice was he given by the Chief of Defense Staff? Now, if it turns out to be the other way around, that the Chief of Defense Staff has put this particular group together for that particular operation, then that is very disturbing. That is very, very disturbing. Because they were out of the barracks for almost a whole day.
He adds that there has been over-politicization of the country's military.
And there's one thing that we have to watch carefully also, because it's of great importance. This country has never had any experience of a serious military intervention until 1966. And that, unfortunately, the armed forces, Ghana Armed Forces or the military, was politicized. And I think that is what we have to put a stop to immediately. Because the moment our military gets politicized, then we are finished as a state. I think we have to be very, very careful. Now, there are few examples I would like to give young officers coming up.
Right.
They have to be very careful with politicians. I have gone through before and I know what I'm talking about. They have to be very, very, very careful. If they value their profession, then they should keep politicians at bay.
That's a leading member of the NPP, Dr. Mawuena Egbeta, speaking to Johnny Hughes on 3FM's Sunrise. We'll move away from this subject to some other matters here on the news on 3FM 92.7, and concerns have been raised over President Akufo-Addo's latest defense of his government's use of COVID-19 funds. A president during the State of the Nation address yesterday insisted nothing untoward had happened to funds received by his government in fighting the novel virus. Here is the president again.
Mr. Speaker, it is precisely because the economic fallout from the pandemic is so widespread and long-lasting that it is important to show clearly that the COVID-19 funds were not misused. It is critical that we do not lose the confidence of the people that a crisis that they were led to believe we were all in together was abused for personal gain. Mr. Speaker, it was government that asked for the COVID funds to be audited, and I can assure this House that nothing dishonorable was done with the COVID funds. The responses from the Ministers for Health and Finance on January 23rd and 25th, 2023, respectfully, have sufficiently laid to rest the queries from the Auditor General's report. And I believe any objective scrutiny of these statements from the Health and Finance Ministries would justify this conclusion.
So that's the President, Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo, bill to get reactions from Vitus Azim, who's an anti-graft campaigner, because the assertions by the President have been challenged. Some economists alike, Professor John Gachi being one of them, and persons in the country, the CPP's chair as well, has been reacting to this and has a lot to share. But still, on the President's State of the Nation,
Mr. Speaker, we'll spend money on things that are urgent, to build roads and bridges and schools, to train our young people and equip them to face a competitive world. Considering the amount of work that still needs to be done on the state of our roads, the bridges that have to be built, considering the number of classrooms that need to be built, the furniture and equipment needs at all stages of education, considering the number of children who should be in school and are not, considering the number of towns and villages that still do not have access to potable water, I dare say no one can suggest we have overborrowed or spent reckless.
Those assertions, however, have been challenged by Professor Godfred Bockman, who says the evidence on the ground points to imprudent borrowing by government, resulting in the ballooning of the public debt.
The evidence on the ground does not lend support to the President's statement. How do you define recklessness? As a country, we knew long ago that we have a medium debt carrying capacity. The government knew that long ago. If you look at Ghana's debt carrying capacity, as determined by the joint IMF World Bank debt sustainability framework, we have not been prudent with our borrowing and our expenditure.
That's Professor Godfred Bockman speaking there. You're listening to the news here on 3FM 92.7. Stories have been bringing to you the burial of the slain soldier at Ashaman, currently underway at Chad. We've been bringing you live details where my colleague Godwin Asidiba has been stationed all throughout the morning. Meanwhile, the citizens have been demanding a series of action from the President, including a setting up of a committee to investigate the happenings on Tuesday, compensation be paid to victims, and also all those still who are being detained be released by the military and the police. To some more stories, and NDC members of parliament have welcomed the directive by the party suspending all campaign activities towards the upcoming parliamentary primaries in their constituencies. The opposition party, through a statement signed by the General Secretary Fifi Kwete, also barred MPs from travelling. The move is in a bid to get the numbers to fight against the Electoral Commission's proposed constitutional instrument CI for election 2024 and the attempts to make the Ghana card the only source document for registration onto the voters' roll. The CI is expected to be brought to the House this month, and the NDC wants its legislators present to participate fully in debating it. Some members of parliament have been reacting to this. Here is what they've been telling us.
While we are here, some people are running riot in our constituency. In a number of material ways, some 5, in my constituency 6. So we have a lot of these people running around and doing their campaign. Meanwhile, the party has given you a task to fulfill here in Parliament, which requires your permanent presence. You can't go. Even on Saturdays and even some Sundays, the party will hold meetings or assess your constituency. Meanwhile, people are campaigning against you. Your constituents may be saying that in the heat of this, we are not seeing our MP. What is happening to him? When people are running around, people will go there and peddle some untruth. Sometimes you hear that, they go somewhere and an aspirant who is overzealous to unseat an MP will go and say that, look, the MP has
to do parliamentary business. When we are on break, we can go to our constituencies and work. And there are very critical businesses on the floor that members of parliament need to focus on and deal with. And that is what the public expects.
So those are some MPs from Parliament. Let's get on the phone. Abraham Amaliba is a lawyer. He's also a member of the NDC Functional Executive Committee and the Director of Legal Affairs. He's joined us on
to our electoral process.